You ever heard this joke? It's a knock-knock joke for control freaks. Knock, knock, says the control freak. You're supposed to say, who's there, says the control freak. Let me be a bit of a control freak myself right now and do a bit of an analysis of this joke, spiritual analysis, to explore the obvious and explain why it is funny. First of all, it's funny not because it's a surprise. It's funny because we already know it. We already know about control freaks, and we already know about knock-knock jokes. The only surprise is putting these two usual things together in an unusual way. Comedy is about totally routine, predictable, commonplace things. Like the behavior of teenagers when they are with their parents in the presence of teenaged peers. I see some nods. Man, you learn a lot about your teenage kid when you put them in a car with their friends, and they're in the back seat and you're in the front seat, and then they say stuff, and it's pretty wild. You learn a lot. They forget that you're there in the front seat, listening to every word. Like the things people really are doing but not talking about when they are talking on their smartphones in private. Right? So you're talking to somebody and they think you're present and you're fully there and you're listening, but meanwhile you're doing a whole bunch of other stuff, right? That's fodder for comedy right there. 3/4 of what makes comedians funny is the fact that everybody knows exactly what they're talking about. There's no mystery in the subject matter. Most of what they're doing is shining a spotlight of attention on the most dull, commonplace, normal, everyday stuff that we barely notice most of the time. And they do it in such a way that cracks us up. Most of comedy is about unforgetting things. And a lot of Christianity is about unforgetting things, too. There's a part of the Eastern Orthodox Mass that is identified as, in Greek, as the anamnesis. And that's, amnesis is forgetting, anamnesis is unforgetting. That's the word for remembering in the Christian New Testament and the biblical Greek version. So the anamnesis is the part of the Mass, the Orthodox Mass, when people unforget the story of Jesus serving the last Passover meal with his disciples. You anamnesis. You do an anamnesis in that ceremony, remembering. But it's more than remembering. Remembering sort of suggests that that the awareness is there, but that you just need to call it up. Unforgetting seems like a more active process, yeah, more intentional. You are unforgetting stuff that you had forgotten, really left out of consciousness, and you're working to bring it back up in a more active way. Because sometimes we talk about remembering in a way that doesn't even suggest forgetfulness. But this word, this wonderful word in the Greek language, invites us to be active in this process. Actively recall, actively remember. And of course, the Jewish people, the Passover was a remembrance, right, of what the people of Israel went through to get out of bondage in Egypt. And when Jesus introduced the Passover with his disciples, the gospel tells us, he said, "Do this in remembrance of me." So, remember what the people of Israel went through. Remember me as well. Unforget me. over and over. In Orthodox Christianity, there's a long tradition of mysticism, of course. Leo Tolstoy, the famous author, he was a bridge in a lot of ways between the Eastern branch and the Western branch of Christianity. His novels, his essays that he wrote late in life had a big impact on the world beyond Russia. Gandhi read Tolstoy, and a lot of his principles around nonviolence came from Leo Tolstoy, believe it or not. Tolstoy was a rich nobleman who renounced his wealth and privilege and lived a simple life with his peasants, loving and learning from them. And he was in a long tradition of Orthodox Christians, both clergy and lay people, who would set themselves apart for long periods of mystical prayer in which they sought oneness with God. A tradition that emphasized direct encounter of the soul with the divine, with the true self that we all share. And if we go within, go deep enough, we begin to realize that the whole world of spiritual wisdom and knowledge isn't something that we lack, that must be poured into us as if we were empty vessels that needed to be filled. All of it is already there inside of us. We're already full. Spiritual work is not about knowing what we don't yet know. Spiritual work is about unforgetting what we already know most deeply. It's about removing the barriers and the blocks and the burdens that get in the way of reconnecting with what's already within. It's active work. It's not just remembering, it's the active work of unforgetting. You hired me to come here, but I'm just here to tell you, you didn't hire me to teach you anything. You hired me just to remember what you already know. That's my job. We already know that love is all that matters, but oh, how easy it is to forget that. How easy it is to not bring that up to consciousness and keep it in consciousness and make a very big deal about everything else but love. We don't have to be taught to love. We learned that as little kids, as toddlers, as babies. It's planted within us at birth. Sometimes we trick ourselves into presuming that the reason that children seem to love so purely is that they don't know enough about how hard the world is. I would say maybe the opposite is true. Children just haven't forgotten it yet. And this isn't just true of love. There is some way in which all the basic knowledge of the universe is planted within us already. It's really interesting to consider this. Mathematics. Anybody here have a hard time in math class? I want to see if you have. I'll check you out. A bunch of people who didn't have a hard time in math. I'm very impressed. I'll talk to you later. This is fun. But a lot of us did. But it might be that all the math that ever was or will be is built into us. It's already in us. And that what we are doing in math education is just lifting up the knowledge or the essence that's already in us. There's a famous theoretical physicist, Roger Penrose. I've read a bunch of his books. He's a pretty important figure in theoretical physics. At one point, he suggested in one of his books that mathematics and the minds that perceive mathematics are one and the same. He suggested that quantum mechanical processes, subatomic phenomena, might well be at play in the way our brains work. That there's a quantum mechanical process, not just a biochemical exchange of ions across membranes. Not just that, but quantum mechanical process involved in thought. There's a way in which it can be said that quantum phenomena, this is another layer of what he says, that at the quantum level, the subatomic fundamental particle level, quantum phenomena are the same thing as the mathematics that describe them. Sit with that for a bit. In other words, that the universe is made out of mathematics. The mathematical fundamental mathematics of quantum mechanics are one with that which they describe. An example of this, now I'm really going deep here, so you'll excuse me. An example of this is the fundamental particles, like boson, like an electron. Electrons aren't made of anything else, right? There's nothing, there's no pieces inside of an electron. And one electron does not have a distinct personality compared to another electron. They are just different manifestations of the same thing, right? You can't reduce them to anything else. They're irreducible. They don't have constituent parts. That's even hard for our brains to understand. At the same time, in mathematics, there's, for example, the number 1. It's not like the number 1 is different in the different ways that it's used. There's only one number 1. There's just an infinite variety of ways in which it manifests, right? So numbers are irreducible, and subatomic particles are irreducible, and Penrose says they're the same thing, which is a wild idea. And where I'm going with this is that he is suggesting that we're made out of math, so what we're doing in math class is getting in touch, unforgetting what we're made out of. Unforgetting the essential structure of who we are physically. We go to school to learn how to access the math that is already planted within us all. So it is with the mind, so it is with the soul. We already know that forgiveness, for example, is required to gain the peace and harmony that we all crave. But that knowledge is embedded in our souls already. We just need to unforget forgiveness. We already know that making sure the most vulnerable people are lovingly cared for. And we know that trumps all of our desires for possession and power. We just need to unforget compassion at a both personal and social level. We know what we're supposed to do in this world. We already know it. It's engraved in our consciousness, engraved in our very DNA. We know what we're here to do. We already know our real duties, as Tolstoy recognized. The duties that follow from our real position as beings called into life and endowed with reason and love. We know in our bones what we need to do. We just need to unforget what it is that we need to do. So if there's any of us among us who are forgetful here among us, we're in great company. Yes. And our spiritual tradition, going back into our Jewish tradition and our Christian tradition, invite us to unforget. That's our task here, to unforget what we already know, to unforget who we already are, to unforget what we need to be doing in this world that we already know what we need to be doing. That's what the gospel story is all about. That's what Orthodox liturgy and unorthodox liturgy, like how we do it, is all about, right? The gospel is true not because anybody had to be convinced of its truth. I'm not here to make you believers. You're already believers, whether you remember that you're believers or not, because it's built into us. We're just here to remember the kernel of truth of the gospel that's already hardwired into us all. And that truth is that love is all that matters, and that love is stronger than death. And when we take communion, as we will next week, we can remember. And not just remember, but go the next step and unforget. Amen.